ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. Now, in the last session, we introduced the subject of how to proceed towards divinity, how to proceed to the divine path, or in a more simple language, how to discover oneself. Now, today I will talk about two, three things. The first is that how do we make sure that we are on the right path? So the first thing would be dealing with the right path, how we understand it. And then we will talk about one of the major hurdles in the path and how we can overcome that. And then we'll proceed from there onwards. So the first thing is we must understand that there is a vast difference, or there is a tremendous difference between the path of the world in which we live in, the sansar ka rasta, and the path of the divinity. The path of the world moves in a very different way, and we must understand that. This path moves from expansion to boredom to expansion to boredom to expansion to boredom. Like you go to a restaurant to take a particular variety of food. You go there once or twice, three times, then you get bored. Then you try to explore another restaurant and go there uh, because the boredom takes over and you need to find something new. You get fed up with your trouser and shirt, you wear them for a few months and they say, no, I need to buy something new, and then you go for a new clothing because you get bored with what you have been wearing and then you buy a new one. It applies in all facets of life. You get fed up with certain books, certain readings, you abandon them and go to a new book, a new subject, a new reading. You start a business, you get fed up, you go into a different direction, either in the same business or you open a new business. This is a normal human process we will observe everywhere. That the human being in this material world where we live in tries to expand his presence in order to acquire satisfaction or happiness, but ultimately he lands up in boredom and then he explores a new path in the same direction or in a new direction. This is a regular feature of our daily life. If you analyze it, you will find it. Even in the home front at home, there are people who get fed up with one person and then they try to find another person. They get fed up with one friend. After a while, they try to find another one. This is a normal process. I'm not saying that there are no exceptions to this, there are exceptions. But in general, we expand to find happiness, to find satisfaction, but we end up with boredom. And then we find a new direction or a further direction in the same route. This is the path of the world. This is the material path on which we are. So if you think that we are expanding like this, then you must realize that we are not on the path to the divinity. Because the boredom does not affect you in the path of divinity. Now, what is the path of divinity? Devik Marg. How do you understand that? Now, Devik Marg is basically takes you deeper and deeper. Your thirst is quenched, but you become more thirsty. As your thirst quenches, you acquire more and more thirst. And you go deeper and deeper and deeper into that path. You start from the periphery and you go down to the core and then discover the divinity. Now, let me explain this path, how it works. Now, we see the world around us. We see a house, we see a city. Now, how do we see that? We see through our consciousness. Consciousness is the tool available for us to, to have what we call knowledge of the world. There are three Sanskrit words which we should know in this respect: Gyata, Gyan, and Ge. Now, the person who is experiencing is the Gyata. Like I see around me the world, so I am the Gyata. The world which I am experiencing is the object of knowledge. That is the Gyan, second part, and the process in which I acquire that knowledge is called Ge. So this is the explanation of this whole process. Now you start from the periphery, you start from the world outside you, and you find that the world is separate than me. So you leave that world, then come closer. Then you come to, for example, you come to one of your friends and you understand your friend, you know your friend, but then you realize that the friend is different than me. I am the subject and the friend becomes object. Then you come closer to your own self, that we do in our meditation every day. You feel your body. Then you realize that I am not the body because the consciousness inside me is separate from the body. That consciousness is able to see this body, able to understand this body, able to get what you call knowledge of this body. So the body gets separated from the real consciousness. Then you move to your senses and mind. Then you realize that you can also feel the mind separately. Many times you are in anger, you are in emotions, you are, sad, you have aggressive mood. Now you can feel all that what is going on in your mind. Your emotions you can feel, the thought process which is going on in your mind you can feel. All the thoughts come and go, and the whole process of coming and going, you can see it from inside. So you realize that this mind is also separate from, this is also an object, this is not a subject, and I'm able to feel it, I can realize it, I can understand it. Then you go closer, further closer, you go to your ego, which is very, very subtle. And you go deeper into that, you will feel that why did I get angry today? Because somebody hurt my feelings. Why was I upset with my employee today? Because he did not say good morning when I entered the office in the morning. So this is the kind of feeling you get, that this ego is also separate than my consciousness. So ultimately you go deep down to your core. The core is the consciousness. That is the ultimate subject. That subject cannot be felt by anything, because that subject is you. Everything else which are in the form of layers outside that subject are actually the periphery. And you remove them one by one, one by one, one by one, and you will reach inside, deep inside yourself, to a state where you will realize that there is nothing more to be removed. You have removed your body, you have removed your senses, you have removed your mind, your intellect, your ego. Now, what is inside is the core of your existence. And that is where we have to go. So, the exercise of finding divinity is to go deeper into this core and reach the core itself. This is what we have to understand. We don't have to expand anything here. If you are expanding, it means you are still in the world. For example, you have read Gita, now you want to read Bhagavad Puran, then you want to read Upanishads, then you want to read Brahma Sutra, and then you want to read Astavakra Gita. It means you are still expanding. You have not started the process of going deep into the core. Now, all these outside things help us in the process, but they only help us. They are not the core of what we are looking for. The core, you have to go deeper by removing layer by layer the outside world which exists around you. And that is where the test lies, whether you are proceeding in the right direction or not. I will suggest that in your quiet time, when you meditate sometime, you should think about this process of removing the layer and reaching the core of the existence. This is what we do in our meditation we do every Monday. We think about the universe outside, then we think about our body, then we think about our mind, then we finally go and dissolve ourselves into Anahata Chakra. Anahata Chakra is the place where the core of the existence lives, from where the consciousness actually watches or enables you to watch everything else surrounding you. So this is the process of dhyan. This is also the process which we can observe in our life every single day. And this is the process, slowly we proceed in that direction, and we will find that we are touching the core of our existence. So this is just a test of how to find whether we are on the right path or not. So this is the first part I wanted to cover today, that we have to move from periphery to center, removing layer by layer. If we are still in the periphery and expanding that periphery from one place to another, it means we are in the world, we are in the material existence. We are not on the right path to look for divinity. Now I would like to talk the biggest hurdle which exists in this path of our self-realization. The biggest hurdle, as you know, is basically ego. The very fact that we feel important, that we exist, that I exist, and I am running this household and I am running this business, or perhaps I am running this family or even this nation, that kind of feeling is the biggest hurdle in this path of reaching the divinity or realizing the divinity. Now, what is this ego? How it works? It is the most subtle element of human existence. You don't realize that it exists, but you can feel it, and I'll tell you how you feel it. First, let me tell you the four fundamental factors that promote ego. Those are contributing to the ego. These are the four fundamental, I would say, contributing factor towards the ego. The first factor is acquisition of wealth. The more wealth you acquire, the more ego develops. You see everywhere, this man is rich man. When he's arriving, people give him the way, they salute him, and they give him what you call prime place on the stage. That all this actually boosts his ego further. Once that happens, then next time if he goes somewhere and doesn't get that kind of reception, he is completely disappointed. Sometimes some people become very distressed with this kind of reception they get. So as the wealth grows, a poor man has no ego. He gets his food, it's fine. He sleeps on the roadside, it's fine. He doesn't have any great ego. But of course, he has some ego. I'll come to that later. But basically, he does not have much ego. But as you become richer and richer and richer, your the layer of ego becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. This is the process, and this is the one factor which you can feel in your friendship, in your environment. For example, sometimes you feel that my friend, I have a small Suzuki, somebody else got, oh, he's got a Mercedes Benz. Immediately the Mercedes Benz guy, he looks in a different way, his eyes are different, his ego perception is very different. On the road when he drives, his driving technique is so different. He wants to overtake, jump here and there, and show that he has the Mercedes Benz. So this is how the ego works. You can expand it in any field. I'm not saying some people are still very polite after getting a lot of wealth, but that is an exception. So I'm not ruling out exception. There are very rich people who are very polite and nice, but generally the additional wealth adds another layer of ego on your ego layer. That is one. Second is the power. The more the power you acquire, the more the ego takes over. A person in the who is the sarpanch of a village, he will not have that much ego than a person who is the chief minister of a state. The state chief minister will have a different aura, and he expects certain formalities, protocol, reception, respect in a different way. In fact, the whole system of protocol and security is designed to satisfy that ego. So this is as you get more and more power, the prime minister, the president, and if you become US president, you have even the highest level of ego. The Chinese president has great ego these days. So as you become more and more powerful, your layer of ego keeps, adding, and it becomes thicker and thicker. That is the second reason why, the ego grows. The third is social status and prestige. Some people don't have that official power, but they have social get-togethers. There are people who recognize them in their society, in their community, in the neighborhood where they live, and that prestige also adds to their ego feelings. Their layer of ego grows with more and more prestige acquired. And the last one is the knowledge. The more knowledgeable you become, you read more, you're quoting, Shakespeare and Milton and Kalidas and, Yagyavalkya and so many people, then you become more egoistic. The knowledge adds to your ego. In fact, knowledge adds to tremendous amount of ego. You will find large number of professors in the universities. If a professor, if you call him Mr., he will be shocked, and you will feel that he will treat you with contempt, because the word professor itself is a sign of great ego. So this knowledge also adds to what we call the layer of ego on our personality. So these are the four, I would say, fundamental elements that promote ego, and one has to be careful with those four elements. It does not mean that you don't have to acquire those elements. Yes, you should acquire, but without adding to your ego. That is the test. In Sanskrit, they say Vidya Dadati Vinyam. If you acquire more and more knowledge, and if you do not become wise, then it means you do not become polite. It means that you are not well educated. There is another Sanskrit verse which sometimes I quote, which is reads like this: Vidya Vivadaya Dhanam Madaya Shakti Paresham Parpidinaya Khalasya Sadho Viprit Metat Jnanaya Danaya Charakshana. Khalasya Sadho Viprit Metat. Khal और साधु, उन दोनों में they are विपरीत. Their tendencies are opposite of each other. Khal means the wicked person. If he acquires wealth, Vidya Vivada, if he acquires knowledge, he uses it for creating unnecessary debate. Vivad, Vidya Vivada. If he gets Vidya, he uses it to create Vivad. Dhanam Mada, if he acquires wealth, he becomes arrogant. And Shakti Paresham Parvidna, if he acquires lot of power, whether it is physical power or official power, then Paresham Parvidna, दूसरे लोगों को पीड़ा पहुंचाने के लिए काम में रहता है. So this is what they do. And if the sajjan, if the right person gets all these things, then what does he do? Jnanaya Danaya Charakshana. if the gentleman, a Bhadra Purus, a saintly Purus acquires these things, if he acquires knowledge, he uses it to expand knowledge of others. If he acquires wealth, he donates it to the needy and the poor. And if he acquires power, he uses it to protect the weak. So this is the difference. This is also explaining how the ego works and how ego can actually create problem for us. So this was these four pillars of ego. One has to be very careful about. One has to keep observing whether these pillars are inflating my ego or they are not inflating my ego. That is very important observation. Everybody has to make it in his personal life. Now, how do you feel that your ego is getting inflated? How do you get the symptoms, outside symptoms? Now, there are four symptoms which are very visible, which you can feel that the person is having, inflated ego if those four symptoms are visible. The first symptom is jealousy. For example, you acquire a house and somebody next door acquires a bigger house. All of a sudden, you become jealous. Why? Because this comes from the ego that my house has become smaller now. It was big house earlier. Now it has become smaller because the next door neighbor has acquired a bigger one. And that hurts your ego. And therefore you become jealous. So anybody who becomes jealous, for example, a junior person whom you do not regard as a great competent guy, and he gets his promotion and he becomes a big boss in the company. You feel, what is this guy? He doesn't know anything and he has become the big boss. So that also is a feeling of jealousy. It comes because of the ego. Ego we have creates that feeling of jealousy. There are many examples you can find where ego results into jealousy. It could be the wealth, like display of a big house or a big car or a company of the people with you live. Somebody put their photographs that I was with the president and the prime minister. It means they are showing their ego, and others they want others to get jealous of that. If you are getting jealous, it means that your ego is hurt. That guy has company of the bigger guys and I don't have. So this process works. So first thing we have to observe how much jealous we become. If we are becoming jealous for some reason, you should go into yourself and find out why I became. You will find that it is precisely because of ego. Your ego has been hurt somewhere and that is why you have become jealous. So this is the first test. Now the second test, hatred. Hatred is even beyond ego. When some people develop hatred, it means they have crossed the limit of jealousy and they have gone even beyond that. Their ego is even higher, and that's why they have developed hatred. For example, I know some people who were classmates in their childhood. One guy was very poor in studies, and the other guy was very brilliant, scoring very good marks. The poor guy started some business and did very well, and he becomes a crorepati in a few years' time. And the brilliant guy does all right, but he only gets say 30, 40, 50,000 rupees a month, and he still has to meet all these expenses. So he feel that he can't have a car, he can't have a big house, he can't have the friends which other guy who was very poor in studies is able to afford. So that creates a feeling of hatred. That then he starts hating him. You tell his name, oh no, he's not a good guy. You will feel that. So this feeling of hatred is the second symbol, which tells us that our ego is hurt and we are uh, uh, conveying our hatred because of the hurt ego. So that's the second, symptom of ego. The third is greed. Greed means you have tendency to acquire more and more. You are not satisfied. You have seen that Maslow's need hierarchy also, but that's in a slightly different version. Here we are talking about, for example, you acquire promotion in organization, From a salesman, you become sales manager, then you become marketing manager, and then you become manager of the unit, and then you become manager of the region. Slowly, slowly, you rise up and up and up. Now, if you are not happy with your rise and you keep complaining against that, there's nothing wrong with rise. You must rise. But if you are not happy with the rise and keep complaining, that means you have greed. If you are rising in a natural process without either inflating your ego or without hurting your ego, then it's normal. But despite your promotions, you are feeling that I have not got my due. I'm much more brilliant, I should get, and this, then it means the ego is in the way and the greed is coming out of the ego. The ego is actually promoting your greed. It can promote the greed of power. For example, a minister in the state cabinet wants to become chief minister there, and the chief minister wants to become a cabinet minister in the center, and the cabinet minister wants to become the prime minister of the country. So this is the level of greed which continues. Similarly, a Hajarpati wants to become Lakpati, and Lakpati wants to Karodpati, and Karodpati wants to become Arabpati. That is all because of the process of greed which plays its role. The process of ego which inflates your greed. So this is the third symptom of our inflated ego. And the fourth symptom is anger. Anger, you will find each one of us get angry because if somebody, for example, you enter the office in a very nice, smiling mood and the receptionist does not greet you when you enter, all of a sudden become angry. Your ego is hurt, and you know, you come home and you tell your wife, can you make me this? She says, no, I'm not fine today. Okay, I can take some rest. Your ego will be hurt and you will be very, very angry. So this is the anger reflects in variety of ways. You expect your son to follow your instructions and he completely ignores. You become angry over your son and you start firing him here and there. So these are normal human tendencies. These happen with each one of us. Each one of us is facing these tendencies. But the prudence lies in realizing these symptoms and finding the cause of why this happened to me, why I became jealous, why I became developed hatred, why I became greedy, why I became angry. If you start analyzing that, then you will be able to contain the ego inside yourself in a very systematic way. So, to summarize this, there are four pillars which are promoting ego. That is the wealth, power, prestige, and knowledge. These are the four major pillars. There could be some smaller sub pillars. That's a different issue, but these are the four major pillars. And there are four symptoms which you demonstrate when your ego is hurt: the jealousy, the hatred, and the greed, and the anger. These are the factors which we must realize, because this is the biggest hurdle in our way to go to that core layer which we were talking about in a few minutes ago, that you have to open layer by layer, remove all the periphery, and go to the final subject of yourself. That final subject cannot see anything. That is you. That subject is the core of the existence. So that is possible only when we get rid of ego. Ego is very subtle. Its existence is very thorough. It's like water. It flows. You don't feel that I am egoistic. Very often we feel that I have no ego. I am absolutely fine. But when you really get hurt, the ego comes out. You get angry. If any of these four symptoms are visible, it means you have some ego left and you have to get rid of that ego. So this is what a self-analysis is needed for that. A self-analysis of by each one of us in our daily life is needed. And the first, whether we are going in the path of the material world, that is expanding and getting boredom, that is expanding and getting boredom, that is the path of the material world, and going deeper and deeper into the core and your thirst become more and more, that is the path of divinity. You are going towards the divinity. And then The biggest hurdle in the path is the ego, which is expanded by four pillars and which is reflected into four symptoms. Now, to conclude today's lecture, I want to tell you a story. It's a, story written by Bertrand Arthur Russell. He is a British philosopher. Uh, he doesn't written many stories, but he has written some stories. This is one of them. This is called Nightmare of a Theologist. There was a theologist. Theologist is the religious preacher in the Christian sense. A religious preacher. He was a very thoroughly gentle guy. He was doing good for the society. He was working very hard. Uh, he was advising correct thing to the people who came to the church. He was guiding people who were in distress. So he was pretty sure that when he dies, he will go to the heaven. That was his expectation and his estimate based on his conduct and behavior. Now, one day he passed away, and he went to the heaven. He was waiting outside the big door of the heaven. There's a huge, big, massive door outside the heaven. He was expecting that he will be received with great fanfare because he has done such great work. So he was expecting that, but unfortunately that did not happen. When he reached there, the door was still closed, and nobody opened the door. So he started banging on the door of the heaven. After a little while, or maybe after a few hours, because he was waiting after a few hours, somebody opened a small little window and looked outside. He had many hats and his face was shining. So the priest thought that he's the God now has come. Maybe he was busy somewhere. He did not know that I'm coming. So now he has come. So he says, he referred, oh Lord, I don't want to, I'm not able to see all these faces. These are so shining and bright. So can you, reduce your illumination? So this guy says that, no, I'm not the Lord. I'm only a security guard here. I'm just come here to see whether everything is fine. So what do you want? He said that I have come from the earth and I have done great work there. So I'm waiting for the door of the heaven to be opened for me. He says, which earth you have come from? He says, the solar system where there is a sun and 7 planets and 8 planets and things like that. What is that solar system? I don't know what is that solar system? And what is this man? These things are very new to me, he said. So I will call the librarian because he keeps the record of all the things and he will talk to you. So he called the librarian. And when the librarian came, the priest explained to him that I have come from the earth, I have done great work. And, I'm expecting that the doors of the heaven will be opened for me. So he says, which solar system you are talking about? Oh, can you give me some little more description? Because there are trillions of solar systems and there are billions of galaxies. So, let me find out my subgalactic librarian because he has a full record of all the galaxies and the solar system, so he can help you. So he called the librarian who deals with the galactic systems. So that guy came and he asked him, what are you looking for? Where are you? Then he again gave his explanation that I have come from the earth, I come from the solar system, and this forms part of this particular galaxy. Then he looked into his books in detail because there are billions of galaxies, and he found, okay, galaxy number XO573297. Okay, that galaxy you come from. Okay, but that galaxy has 300 billion solar systems. So I have to call my sub-librarian who deals only with the solar systems. So he called another guy who deals only with the solar systems because he was dealing only with the galactic systems. So the guy came and he says, give me some more description about system you have come from, where you are, what kind of son it is, what kind of. So he gave all the knowledge which he had. He reiterated it again, and he went through his entire directory and trying to find out which solar system he comes from, and what kind of earth it is, where the earth is. And while this was going on, he woke up because it was he was still waiting outside the big door of the heaven and the door to be opened. And all this debate was going on, and he woke up at that time from his nightmare. And he was realizing, what is this? So you see, the moral of this story is that the whole universe is so big, so massive, and our ego is so inflated that we feel that we are entitled to this. While if you look at the system of galaxies, if you look at system of solar systems, if you look at planets, if you look at moons, and if you look at earths which are in billions all over this universe, then you will realize that how minuscule you are. The greatest librarian, he could not even identify this earth where it is. If you go outside in this universe, and if you go to another, for example, closer to another star in the universe, you will not know where this earth is. It will be all disappearing. So the moral of the story is that our ego is highly inflated. We presume that we are the greatest species on life. We presume that we deserve this, we deserve that. While in the overall context of this vast universe, we are nothing, we are not even the minuscule, uh, small little particle like an ant in this whole universe. So, this is what I'm telling you this story only because that we have to somewhere reduce our ego, which keeps becoming creating hurdles in our path towards the divinity. So I will end here today, and if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and you can raise your questions, and then we will go for our next session of meditation.